This episode was recorded during the virtual session, Legislative Strategies to Strengthen Digital Identity Governance, organized by ParlAmericas Digital Caucus in August 2024. In the session, Michele Marius, Director at ICT Pulse, provided a comprehensive analysis of the challenges and opportunities for achieving inclusive digital transformation in the Caribbean, emphasizing the need for policies to address affordability, meaningful connectivity, and digital literacy to ensure equitable participation in the region's growing digital economy. Listen to Michele Marius as she explores key issues hindering digital transformation in the Caribbean, including the digital divide, which disproportionately affects traditionally marginalized groups such as persons with disabilities, women, and those living in poverty. She also highlights important initiatives such as Barbados' National Transformation Initiative, the OECS Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, and Jamaica's National Identification System, all aimed at enhancing digital infrastructure and fostering a more resilient digital landscape.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. And in this presentation, which is pretty short, I only have 7 minutes, I would like to just begin by just giving a quick sense as to what we're going to cover today. Since the discussion is really about digital identity and inclusive digital transformation, I would like to just provide some brief context on the Caribbean region and then highlight some initiatives that have been implemented that should facilitate inclusive digital transformation, at least in some aspects. But first, just to move us forward, I want to just say in terms of context, and especially when we talk about the English-speaking Caribbean, in particular, the Caribbean islands, the countries that make up the Caribbean community, they are diverse. There usually is a sense that we talk about the Caribbean and it's one entity, one sort of group, but we are very different. We may have general similarities, but matters related to culture, as well as geographic terrain, population, etc. We have a lot of differences. And although we are often categorized as middle-income countries, and we enjoy a relatively high standard of living, we are also small island developing states. And so we're subject to a number of vulnerabilities, which I have listed a few: high cost of living, high cost of doing business, just infrastructure challenges. We depend a lot on international trade, but we are vulnerable to trade barriers and logistical challenges. Now, in terms of inclusive digital transformation, what I have found generally is that when we look at for example, in the region, the telecommunication sectors were liberalized, so moving from the monopoly environment to competitive markets, what we had been doing primarily was focusing, when we talk about inclusivity, the geographic and socioeconomic access, so the extent of the digital inclusion and the narrowing of digital divide. So often in terms of getting the network to reach people in remote locations, maybe addressing a few matters related to affordability, so that people who have been in the lower economic brackets, there would have been ways to begin to help them to connect and to pay for the services. However, what I have found is that we may not have always paid much attention to the full scope of inclusivity, so matters related to digital equity, and where we're talking about individuals and communities having the informational capacity and the technology capacity to really fully participate in the society, especially all of the digital transformation that has been going on. The needs of people with disabilities and other minority groups here in the Caribbean region. We have quite a few minority groups, some cultural in terms of, and communities as well. So in addition to the elderly, those with disabilities, those who are women, children, and youth, we also have Maroons and different sorts of ethnicities and indigenous populations that are not necessarily readily being considered when we talk about digital inclusion and digital and inclusive digital transformation. And we have as well matters related to meaningful connectivity. Can everybody have access to the internet and can use it as they need to, when they need to use it, and at an affordable price? So these are things, though, that I think we are now needing to pull into our conversation and into our policies moving forward. Some of it is beginning to happen, but it is not yet fully integrated into how we view the world and how we shape the policies that we need to create. And now just giving you some examples. The first one is Barbados and their National Skills Development Initiative. So the National Transformation Initiative. For those who might not be aware, Barbados here in the Caribbean, all of their primary and secondary schools have internet connectivity. Education is free up until your first degree at university. Yes, you may have to pay some minor fees and so on, but the tuition for all intents and purposes, which can often be a hindrance as well as a deterrent for people not being able to go to university, is waived, at least for your first degree. However, it also means not necessarily just within Barbados, but Barbados is also a hub for tertiary level education within the Eastern Caribbean. And so you have the entry requirements and the competition to get into universities in Barbados can be quite high. So even if it may not be an affordability issue, you may not necessarily have the means, the academic requirements to matriculate into university. But what we have, and Barbados has been really trying to integrate technology into its digital transformation agenda. And the National Transformation Initiative is one of those huge elements that I think offers a safety net to Barbadians, especially those who may not have been able to get into university. There are avenues through which they can, thousands of courses, digital courses as well, those related to ICT, but just those that help them to increase and improve their skills across the board. So I do think, though, that it is an area that and an initiative that it helps Barbados to begin and to facilitate the transformation and empower its people, even those who, for varying reasons, whether it is financial or otherwise, might not have been able to further their education and thus their participation in the digital society that is emerging. The second one that I just quickly want to raise is the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project that is being conducted with the OECS in collaboration with the World Bank. And 4 Caribbean countries, Dominica, Grenada, Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, are the participating countries. Now, this project is a comprehensive one that is really looking at strengthening the digital economy across the Eastern Caribbean and addressing key bottlenecks. And a lot of it, though, is really about the enabling environment. So it will be looking at areas like, as it relates to telecommunications, the legal and regulatory environment, and building the capacity and helping the countries to transition from the historic frameworks that they had in place to ones that are more current, recognizing the importance and need for ICT and the oversight that ICT is looking at. They also will be looking strongly at cybersecurity, data protection, privacy, as well as digital financial services. So the whole issue of financial inclusion and those who might be still underbanked as well as unbanked across that area. That, I think, is just another very progressive, but also very, very important initiative that at least these 4 countries have come together. They are small. Among the 4 of them, they probably may have a total population of maybe 500,000 people. But again, this is another example, though, of, again, within the Caribbean region, the differences, but us coming together to collaborate and benefit from the economies of scale that we can benefit from when we come together to achieve certain common goals. And the final one that I want to mention, and this one is the national identification system that is being currently rolled out in Jamaica. And why it becomes so important is because Jamaica does not have a national ID. If you do not have, you can't drive, or you don't have a driver's license, and if you're not traveling, for example, in terms of having a passport, you may be challenged to have some form of government issued identification with a picture ID. There is an electoral card, but that one again, there may be constraints as to why you may not be able to access it. And so having a national ID now, it allows every Jamaican to have some form of identification and to be able then to participate as well as to interact efficiently across not necessarily just government, but many of the services and within the public and private sector. Because anytime you need to perhaps offer some sort of identification for verification, if you want to start a bank account, if you want to do certain especially expensive transactions, identification becomes an issue. Currently, phase one is being implemented, and it will be part of the enrollment and issuance of national ID cards. And in terms of just benefits, again, in addition to just the potential to include every Jamaican, regardless of background, but one can then appreciate that it facilitates the seamless transactions, for example, across government, greater financial inclusion. You can go to an open bank account. There are also different means of doing so currently. However, there comes a point when you need to have some identification to be able to access certain services, and thus also to just greater efficiency, transparency across the government, being able to facilitate. We have been hearing a lot about the single electronic window, some initiative that would allow transactions seamlessly across government. So these things become more possible when we are able to facilitate and encourage a more cohesive approach to government, as well as ensuring that the citizen is able to be properly integrated and identified across many of these systems. And with that, thank you very much.